Hi Benfire, this is Pablo Gomez with Rebound Physical Therapy. I know most of you by now. Welcome to your virtual drop-in sessions. So basically the reason why we're doing these videos is obviously we have a pandemic going on, so getting large groups together is kind of hard, but also just the fact that you guys have really tough schedules also makes videos a good way for us to communicate with you guys, get you guys exercises, and let you guys do some self-screen stuff. That being said, this isn't going to take place of drop-in clinic at all, so drop-in clinic is still going to be happening. So every Wednesday from 11 to noon, we're still going to be plugging that. These videos are a good way for us to remind you again that you need to get in for drop-ins. If you don't have my number or email, we're going to put that up on the screen here for you, hopefully. We'll give you lots of reminders on how to get in touch for drop-in. These videos are not going to take place of, if you have pain, if you have an injury, you're still going to try to get in to see me. The goal here is that you guys have some tools to not only treat yourselves, but also do a little bit of self-assessment. So some of the videos are going to be self-assessment, where you're going to actually be able to do some tests and figure out whether you should be coming in to drop in and see me, or whether maybe you should just be following the videos to try to make yourself feel a little bit better. So the way the videos are broken up, they're going to be broken up into 3 different parts. We're going to talk about mobility, which is basically just moving better. We're going to talk about stability, which is more of building strength around an area, so long duration holds. And then we're going to move into more functional movement patterns, which is going to be more of functional capacity, so letting you guys be able to move within those patterns. If you guys have any questions or suggestions on what you want to see, what we could do different in these videos, we'd love to hear it. Get in touch with me, pgomez@reboundoregon.com, and enjoy your videos. I hope they help. Hi Benfire, Pablo Gomez with Rebound PT here again this week with another video. This is probably the most requested video we had from you guys when we took some surveys about what you guys wanted, and kind of we've been having this request for a couple of years now. To get you guys some videos about this or get you guys some sort of education about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about self-soft tissue. So we're going to talk about foam rolling and other ways for you guys to do some self-release stuff on your own. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of when this is good and when it isn't, and then we're going to walk you guys through kind of head to toe how to do some release and work on your muscles on your own. So a quick thing, we all think that massage and tissue release feels really good, which it does, and it can be very helpful. But at the same time, it's not usually a correction for anything. So if you are really feeling like you have an issue somewhere, foam rolling or massage work, stuff like that, probably isn't going to be the answer for it. It is a symptom reliever, so it's going to make you feel better for a little while. But again, that's one of those things that we're going to have to come back to. Maybe you need to come in and stop by drop-in clinic and find out more of the why behind what's going on. Tight muscles, sore areas usually aren't the cause of anything. So massage work is, again, generally a symptom reliever. There's usually something underlying. So if you're having something that's, say, a knot in your back that's there all the time, it's probably not the muscle that's causing it. It's probably being caused by something in the spine. So there's usually an underlying cause. So unless we get to the underlying cause of that, then we're usually not going to make any permanent type changes. But again, it does feel good. It does give you guys maybe a couple days of relief. It lets you guys do your job a little bit better. So we want you guys to have the tools to know how to do this properly. So a couple different kind of mechanisms of the way we can do things here. So one mechanism of tissue release we'll say is cross-friction massage. So that's just going to be finding an area with a roller or a ball and going over and over it, so back and forth. Basically the reasoning behind that is we're trying to just heat the area up and bring some blood flow to it. So we're not necessarily doing a release or anything like that, but we are bringing more blood flow to that muscle. We are going to be able to heat it up and cause some reliefs. The other thing we can do with, say, a ball or foam roller is like a trigger point release. So on something like that, you would actually find an area of really increased tension and increased pain, and you're gonna hold on that area for, say, 15, 20 seconds, maybe even a little bit longer. Sometimes, you know, even up to a minute to a minute and a half is what some of the research says actually works. There's some massage practices say that you need to really get a true release from a muscle. So this is more of a long-term hold. So you're going to find that area of really painful increased tension, and you're going to hold on that. Sometimes you'll feel a spasm, which is usually kind of a good thing. That means it's going to release afterwards. So that's more of a trigger point release. And then the last one that I like to use a lot is called an active release. So that is finding an area of increased tension or increased pain, and then actually doing a movement around that area. So we'll talk about that in the shoulder a little bit, in the hip a little bit, but that's a really good way to actually add a little bit of movement around a release, and that can really help to get the muscle to release, as well as increase range of motion in a joint. So that's a really good way to increase actual joint mobility. And again, so I'm going to reiterate, we're going to kind of go over head to toe right now. But again, soft tissue work's not going to be, you know, the answer to all your problems, but it is going to feel good. You can do damage by doing foam rolling, by doing trigger point release. So don't overdo it. We've definitely had people come in the clinic who've been, you know, foam rolling for 20, 30 minutes a day on the same spot day after day after day, and that usually doesn't help and doesn't feel very good. So when we talk about foam rolling or any of the other tissue release, it's something that you probably need to do for 2 to 3 minutes in an area, and that's it. So it's not something you want to spend like 30 minutes working on, say, your right hip, because you're probably going to be bruised and sore after that. So there's usually better ways to work on things, better ways to spend your time than to spend that much time on tissue work. So number one, don't hurt yourself. Number two, it's, you know, this is can be a good warm-up pre-exercise, so pre-run or something like that. If you're already really tired, so if you've beat your muscles up by doing like a heavy lifting day, you probably don't want to get into that muscle then right afterwards with like a lacrosse ball, because you've already done damage to your muscle and you don't want to get in there and do any more damage. So again, protect yourself, don't do any more damage than you need to. Use it as a warm-up tool. Use it as maybe a self-release to help yourself maybe get some more range of motion. And remember that it's probably not going to solve any underlying issues that you have going on. It's more going to be a symptom relief. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and dive in. We're going to start kind of at the neck and work our way all the way down and show you guys how to do some of this. So next thing we're going to show you is a posterior rotator cuff release. So this is a shoulder release. So think of this as like your primary foam rolling for the shoulder. Most of us that have any kind of shoulder pain, if you have trouble reaching behind your back, if you failed that test when you came in and saw us, which is probably about 75% of you, then this is a really good exercise for you. So again, take the lacrosse ball. We're going to find ourselves a wall. I'm going to show you guys on Jordan here where the ball goes. Think of right off of that basically armpit crease here. So the ball's going to go just below that to start, and then Jordan's going to lean against the wall. She's going to put her elbow and her wrist against the wall as well. And what that does is that just opens up the back of that shoulder a little bit, so we expose those tendons that we're working on. So that's the spot. She's going to search around a little bit from there, so she's going to move up and down, side to side, until she really finds a spot that she thinks is tender, is tight, feels like a trigger point, and then she's going to kind of go through our mobilization. So she's going to maybe do some trigger point release and breathe into that. And then possibly do some mobilization with movement. And I'm going to actually have her turn around to show you guys that. So we're going to have her face you. So we're going to get that ball there again. I want to show you guys what this looks like from this side. So elbow against the wall, wrist against the wall. She found her trigger point. She's going to search around, and then we're going to add some movement onto this. So as she pins that back of that shoulder down, she's going to go in and out of internal and external rotation, and that's really going to expose those tendons up and down over the ball basically. And so that really gets into a good release. Good thing she has a mask on right now, so you can't see her wincing.
You can see it in my eyes.
And again, so you're going to do this for 2 or 3 minutes. We're not going to do this for 10 minutes. We're not going to bruise the back of your shoulder. This is a really good prerequisite exercise for like getting into overhead lifting. If you've got a big arm day coming up, this is a good pre-warm-up. Okay, good. Give that a try. All right, so last one we have here for what we'd consider the upper body. So I'm going to talk about a forearm release. So this is a big one for me because I work on people all day, and I think it's a big one for you guys with, you know, hard labor, with any kind of chopping, gripping, twisting, that kind of stuff. We get tight in the forearms. We can get nervy in the forearms. So one of the ways we can do a good release ourselves is with a kettlebell. So I know you guys have some kettlebells at home or at the stations. So this is a 12 kilogram, which is almost like 27 pounds. So it takes a little bit of weight to get in here. But what you're going to do is find yourself a table or a bench or something like that, and we're actually going to use that kettlebell, and you're going to just use that kind of like a roller. So you're going to roll into spots, and again, I can find some nasty spots pretty quickly. I can rest on that and do a little trigger point release. I can maybe get my wrist moving for some active release. And so I can focus lateral elbow. I can focus more medial into that forearm. And again, 2 or 3 minutes is all we need on this. Don't overdo it. But this is a really good way to get that loosened up a little bit. All right, so your next exercise, we're going to talk about pec release. So as we work our way down the body a little bit, we talked about neck, we talked about shoulder. Then we're going to get into the front of that shoulder, into pec. Again, this is one that we all spend too much time driving, too much time at our computer. We all end up in this position in front here. So being able to release that and open that chest up is really good. So I'm going to have Jordan actually get in position here on top of the roller. So she's just going to get on her belly, and she's going to just lay over that and find a good spot in that pec. So this is another one that can be a little bit uncomfortable. We do have a lot of nerves that come in through this area in the front here, so be sure you're not getting any kind of numbness or tingling down the arm. And so again, she can hold, she can maybe move the arm up and down, she can maybe roll out and back a little bit. Okay, so you can do this with a lacrosse ball too. It's going to be a little bit, obviously a little bit sharper with the ball. Depending on how broad you are and how much tissue you have in there, a ball might be too much for you. So try out a couple of different methods on this one and see how it feels. Next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to move into the thoracic spine. So we're going to talk about foam rolling for the thoracic spine. Again, this is one that a lot of us need. So a lot of us get too rounded in here, right? We're lacking extension. This is a big one for shoulder mobility. So for those of us that can't get full shoulder mobility, oftentimes it's because we don't have very good thoracic extension. And then again, we're all sitting, we're all driving, we're all at computers a lot. So this is a really good one to reverse that. So I'm going to have Jordan lay perpendicular to the foam roller here. She's going to start probably at like the bottom of her rib cage. I want her to start hands across her chest. Important thing here is not to let your neck go as well. So that's kind of a no-no. So we want her chin to stay tucked and her neck to stay stable. First thing I'm going to have her do, I'm going to have her lift her hips up a little bit, and then I'm going to have her just roll back and forth. And this is an exercise that'll get you a lot of those really satisfying pops, which is fine. It's not necessary. If you don't get a pop, don't worry about it. It's not something that we need to hear something to know this is working. But play with it a little bit. So notice the more she lifts her hips, the more she's going to get up towards that neck there. So you want to direct your force towards the area that you're trying to work or you're trying to mobilize. Okay? Scoot back this way. You're scooting away from us. Scoot down this way a little bit. Okay? And then keep your butt on the ground now. So the next thing we're going to do is actually now go into some extension. So she's going to block at whatever level she wants. So again, starting usually at like the bottom of the rib cage. And then I want her to try to extend over that roller. Okay? You could go here, so you could go hands higher if you wanted to. The important part is we're protecting our neck. So again, we're not extending our neck over that roller. So we're trying to get her to extend. Breathe out as you're trying to mobilize. So breathe out as you stretch back. Okay, so she'll do maybe 2 or 3 times at one level, and then I want her to roll down a little bit. So scoop down. Good. Get maybe a little bit higher now in the spine, and then she's going to do the same thing. So she's going to try to extend. She is allowed to let that rib cage go on this. She's trying to extend through that thoracic spine. Just be sure the neck is protected.
Not much.
Okay, good. I'm going to have Jordan sit up just for a sec so I can show you. So this exercise, both of those exercises work pretty good from probably like T2 or T3, which is going to be just below the base of that neck, all the way down to about T10, T11, so down to the bottom of the rib cage there. You don't really necessarily want to do that much in the lumbar spine, and then obviously you're not going to be able to do that very well up here in the cervical spine. Okay? Okay, next thing we're going to do here that's in this thoracic mobility area is we're going to show you how to roll out the lats. So the lats are that big muscle in the back that kind of basically connect our shoulder even into our low back. Those of us that have trouble lifting overhead, this is a really big one, so we can get a lot of lat tightness. If you've ever played baseball or done any throwing, you probably have a lot of lat tightness. So we're going to have her get on her side with this one. So she's going to actually put that left side over the roller. She's going to get into that lat area, and then she's going to roll up and down. She's going to find trigger points. For active release on this one, she can roll back and forth with the spine, and then she can also think about maybe pulling her elbow down into the floor. So this is going to get into lat, and then it's going to get into the rib cage some, so you're going to get some rib cage mobilization out of this, and also some serratus anterior release. So all those structures on the lateral side of the body there we're going to get.
Oh, that's a nice spot.
Again, there is a nerve, so there is a nerve that runs right through this area here. So, again, important to say, if you're getting any kind of numbness or tingling, back off and don't go through that. 2 to 3 minutes and move on to the next part. So moving down into the lower body. So we're going to move down into the hips and legs next. So first one for hips we're going to talk about is a Piriformis Release. So this is getting into our piriformis, most of our hip external rotators, so into that glute basically. So we're going to have her start by sitting on the roller. She's going to cross her right ankle over her left knee, and that's going to expose that piriformis and external rotators on that right side. And then she's just going to use her arms behind her, and she's going to roll around, find the spots that are bothering her the most. And again, go through holds, go through possibly some active release. Explore a little bit in that glute. So get to a little bit more top of the glute, get a little bit deeper towards the sacrum, and then a little bit lower even towards the bottom of the hamstring. All work really well for this exercise. Continuing into the legs here. So we're going to get into kind of the meat of the legs here. So we're going to talk about quad. We're going to talk about the IT band, which you guys know is always tight and unpleasant to work on. And then up into the hip flexor. So Jordan's going to start with her quad here. She's going to get on her elbows basically face down. She's going to start at the bottom of the knee and work her way up towards the hip flexor. The important thing with some of this foam rolling that we haven't talked about yet and is very pertinent here is never cross a joint. So we're always focusing on a muscle, we're always focusing on tissue. We never actually want to roll the foam roller across a joint. Unless we're in the spine, we're obviously doing that. But never roll across the knee joint. Don't actually roll across the hip joint. So in this position here, she's focusing more on quads. She's gonna next come a little bit higher. So we're gonna have her go a little bit higher. So as we get higher, we're gonna get up into what's called the TFL, which is just below the point in that hip there. That can be a really tender spot. And then she's going to place herself on the other side for a little bit of possible hip flexor release. Again, not rolling across that hip bone. And you'll see she's adding some active release to that. So by bending that knee up and down, she's adding active release to the quad, to the hip flexor, and some to the TFL. So this is all for those anterior structures. She's then going to actually roll facing me a little bit. So she's going to roll onto her elbow. I want her to actually straighten the top knee, and then she's going to straighten the bottom knee, bring that top knee up. This helps kind of support some of her weight here. And then what she's going to do is focus on that lateral leg, which is going to be mostly the TFL and the IT band. And this one, you know, most of us know is pretty unpleasant. Jordan is wincing in pain right now.
I'm not.
This is a huge deal for runners. So for those of you that are running a lot, this is a good kind of pre-run routine, I feel like, better than post-run. So really focus on some of this quad, IT band stuff. After skiing, right, after mountain biking, that's all very quad dominant. This is a great set of rolling to focus on. Okay, so we're going to have her just go right into her other side now. So she's going to now get into her hamstrings. So she is going to be face up, and then we're going to basically get on top of the roller there. And she can pick a side to work on here. And so she's going to just go back and forth there through the hamstring. So same thing, she's going to roll back and forth into that hamstring. She's going to stop at any areas that have increased tension, increased pain. She can do a little bit of knee straightening and knee bending and even pulling into the floor to get some active release out of that. Again, this is where the sciatic nerve runs for the lower body. So if we're getting any kind of numbness or tingling into the feet or anything like that, back off a little bit. You guys are in control of how much pressure you use based on how much weight you're taking on with your hands and how much weight you're taking on with your other foot. So that's hamstring. You're going to focus basically from the very bottom of the glute here all the way down to the back of the knee. And then we're going to talk about going into the calf. Again, don't roll across the back of the knee joint. We're going to have her come up, and then we're going to have her place that foam roller on her calf, and we're going to do just one side at a time. So again, she's going to use her upper body and her other leg to control. Important with a calf that we kind of explore both sides of it. So we can have her point her foot out and explore that outside edge of it, which usually has actually a little bit more trigger point. And then we can have her roll her leg in, and she can get to that medial calf and roll up and down.
That's way there.
Good. And then she can find some assist with the other side. Active release for this is you would get your ankle involved. So find a spot that doesn't feel very good, has increased tension. You can do some ankle pumps up and down. You can do some ankle rolls. Okay, so that is the legs. All right, so as we move our way down the body, we're all the way down to the foot. So we've done basically everything above. Foot's really important. Foot is what's contacting the floor, right? So it's where we can have a lot of issue, where we can hold a lot of tension. So those of you that have issues with plantar fasciitis, heel pain, big toe pain, all that kind of stuff, this can really benefit. All you runners out there could really benefit from a lot of this. So again, we're going to take lacrosse ball, and first thing we're going to do is just a plantar fascia release. So the plantar fascia basically runs from your heel and then all the way out to the edge of all 5 of your toes here. So it's a big band of tissue there. So when we say plantar fasciitis, it's usually an inflammation around that heel there. One of the things that's best to do for that is just some self-release. So she's going to put as much body weight as she can tolerate through that ball, and I want her to just basically roll back and forth. So she's going to do some rolling back and forth. She can do some cross friction. If you have a spot, definitely that's a little closer to the heel usually. So think of maybe some side to side because the fibers are running this way. So cross friction is going to be a cross going the other way, perpendicular to it. Okay, so she's just going to spend, again, 2 or 3 minutes really working that plantar fascia. That is the biggest thing to think about releasing with the foot. The other thing we give most people who have foot and ankle pain is what's called a lateral column release. So this is more of a joint mobilization, but I'm going to show you guys how to do it because it's pretty important for a lot of us. So what she's going to do is she's going to bring her foot onto the ball, and just beyond her 5th metatarsal head, so she's going to have a big bump on the outside of her foot here. Just behind that and inside of that, she's going to put that lacrosse ball. She's going to try to put her heel on the ground. Okay? Some lacrosse balls are a little too big for this, especially if you have small feet, but some of these trigger point balls work well. If not, sometimes we cut lacrosse balls in half, but we can do it with a full lacrosse ball. Have her try to put your heel towards the ground, and then you're going to try to actually get your toes towards the ground as well. You're not going to be able to get that big toe toward the ground. And then is what she's going to do to mobilize through that joint is she's going to turn away from it, and then she's going to turn towards it. Okay? As she turns away from it, it's going to relieve a little pressure. As she turns towards it, it's going to get pretty intense for her. So if you're really tender in that area, if this is really painful for you, then you're probably somebody who needs it. And you're going to do this maybe 20 or 30 times. And again, so this is, I'm not going to get into completely, but this is just helping us release and mobilize the lateral column of that foot, so the outside of that foot, and that helps the foot mechanics function a little bit better. It can really help things like plantar fasciitis, like arch pain, big toe pain, things like that. So those are 2 things with the foot that you can focus on. And I think that's about it. So that is basically the entire body we've covered, head to toe, as far as ways you can do some soft tissue release and self-joint mobilization. So hopefully you guys can try that stuff out and feel a little bit better.